Call to order the Plan Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 12th. May I have a roll call, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Harlow,
Present.
Commissioner Curry, and Commissioner Krillenberger are absent. Commissioner Jablonski,
Here.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Here.
Commissioner Fiasconi, here. Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Willoughby is absent, and Chairman Cashman.
Here. Next order of business, any public comment for non-agenda items? This one never sticks, so we'll move on. Approval of minutes. We have two, one from our special meeting on May 22nd, 2023, and one from our regular meeting on June 14th, 2023. Do the commissioners have any requested revisions or additions to the minutes?
None.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
So
As
moved.
submitted?
More.
Second, Cernovich.
Roll call vote, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Harlow,
Aye.
Commissioner Jablonski,
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiasconi, Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. The next order of business are findings and recommendations. We have one for case A-9, 2023 for 11 Salt Creek Lane, Med Properties, exterior appearance of site plan review to allow for changes to the existing building elevation, landscape plan, and site plan at 11 Salt Creek Lane in the O3 General Office District. Do the commissioners have any requested revisions or additions to the findings of fact and recommendation? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve them as submitted?
So moved. More.
On a roll. Do I have a second?
Second, Cernovich.
A roll call, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Harlow,
Aye.
Commissioner Jablonski,
Abstain.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiasconi,
Abstain.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. Our next order of business is a public meeting for case A-07, 2023 for 830 North Madison Street, Salt Creek Club, exterior appearance and site plan review to allow for the installation of 2 paddle tennis courts on top of existing sports courts and the construction of a patio at 830 North Madison Street in the OS office, Open Space District. And this was continued from our, was that June 14th meeting? Is there someone here from the applicant to give us an overview?
Good evening again, Pete Lewis on behalf of the applicant Salt Creek Club. When we were last before you, there were certain questions about certain items. I'll try to go to clarify them one at a time. And I really thank Bethany and Rob and the village staff because they've been out a few times to the property since we were here on June 14th to check on a few of the comments being made. The first one was about, and I stated that they were on there because they had been made and they were on at one time probably when I was there, but they weren't left on, was what we can call shields or shrouds on the existing paddle courts.
Okay.
The village staff went out, approved that these can be put back up in the way they are and that they'll utilize and work to block light from going outward versus downward. The Salt Creek Club has no problem with that being a condition to put it on the existing courts.
Okay.
Because the new courts are already designed with shrouds and all that. They have the ability. We want to put the kind on that were approved, already been manufactured, approved by village staff to be part of the conditional thing. So the one question was, would we do something to block light that transverses across the property? The answer is yes. They'll all be installed as a condition upon approval. Is not a problem. The second item was there was a question about timers versus just an on-off switch. So there was a timer that was put in actually into the report by the village that was, Al had found certain timers to be installed. They only stay on for 2 hours. They automatically go off when the time hits. It's not an on-off switch. It's a crank, like what was asked by the different commissioners. No problem. Those will be installed on the existing and the new, once approved. So it's not just for the new, they'll be also done on the existing. There was a question also asked about the hours. KLM, and staff has verified this, and all the other parks in town that have paddle and other clubs are 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. We're not asking for anything different than anyone else presently has and what the village has already approved for their own properties. So we're not looking to go outside those boundaries to play earlier, to play later. And we understand that that's one of the important things about the switches is that they'll knock the lights off if anyone leaves and goes home and doesn't manually turn them off. There's another question about parking. There were some presentations of pictures that went into the report for tonight by the village staff that shows that whenever there is a function, they put up cones and signs about not parking on the sidewalk along Madison Avenue. So they do everything they can. Bronzeville only has 9 spots available, so that does not solve any problems. There's only 2 or 3 times a year when there are meets, and it's usually swimming, daytime, that we have a problem, quote unquote, with people parking on the side streets. There's no large paddle tournaments. That's not the issue. The issue is not at night, it's usually daytime, and when those things are going on. So they're gonna continue to go on, making all steps necessary. It was also pointed out, a complaint that there was some lawn maintenance equipment that is motorized that was being utilized before 8 a.m. We have no problem making that a condition to comply with the village code. That's not an issue at all. Those were the main things that were raised about, the different items to see if we can correct any of those problems that possibly do exist there today. So Salt Creek Club wants to be a good neighbor. Staff has been great. They've had them out. There was a letter that we went to the village that was given to us, I don't know if it's in your packet or not, about whether or not this is a special use. I don't want to get into that because I know it's not, because this is legal non-conforming. Salt Creek Club pre-exists, and I see Michael Mars is here tonight, and my guess is that's the reason he's here tonight. I've not talked to him about it, but that was one of the red herrings that I'm not going to even address because I don't believe it's applicable at all here tonight. Because that's not what we're here for. We're here for the approval of putting 2 paddle tennis courts on the existing hard court that was there. We held the last meeting. We're willing to cover everything that's possible to make it the best it could possibly be for the neighbors. So if there's any other questions, I have staff here. I have the president of the club who lives in town here. There's other people here, on support of it. And we're trying to take care of all the issues ahead of time, which is the right time, and I agree with you, to remedy.
Okay, thank you. Laurel, any questions?
Are the new light poles that are going in going to be the same height as the current light poles?
Correct.
Okay. I think this is a great project in terms of reusing existing courts. I really like converting space that's already impermeable, if we can put it that way. I think that's a win. In terms of the patio, that is not an impermeable surface, and so I guess I was wondering, will the patio be porous in any way? Like, will it be laid in sand so that water can kind of
I don't want to
trickle
misstate that, so
through?
let's have, if I may, have Bob, who's.
Yes, a little bit.
testify.
It's just a standard paver patio that like any other resident. We do have currently in the front, we have the same patio system, and the water just percolates through eventually.
Okay.
Okay, it's not concrete.
It's not
Right.
asphalt or concrete. right?
Excellent, yeah. And then is the large asphalt area that is just to the north of the new paddle courts, is that for overflow parking, or do you
No.
use that for pickle?
It's
Or
just a pickle.
Pickle.
that's pickle?
Yeah.
Okay,
Permitted, we got it approved 2 weeks ago, they came out, so everything was good on it.
got it, okay. Okay, I don't think I have any other comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
I don't have any questions or
Thank you.
concerns. I approve the project.
Julie? Thanks, Jerry.
I appreciate the changes you've made to the application. My concern, though, is I feel that the additional lights will continue to encroach upon neighboring properties. I understand that the courts at KLM and Burns Field are on until 10:30 at night. I believe Vec Park and Pierce Park, it's 10 p.m. Is there any way you could the lights could go off earlier? I think 10:45 is really late at night.
You okay with 10:30, right?
It's on-
10:30 is not a problem.
You could do 10:30,
Yes.
not 10?
Yes.
Is there any way to do 10 o'clock?
It's
or-
hard, people travel down to play, and when they come from the north side to play, they play till 10:30.
Charlie Usher will speak on the paddle, probably 10:30, we got set up.
You need to come to the mic, Charlie.
Oh, I'm sorry, we'll get out of the way.
Longtime paddle advocate. Was here in the 80s when they first brought them in 84, 85, signed that petition. Helped build the ones at KLM. I'm a 7-year park and rec commissioner. I've seen it all in paddle. I'm currently the head of men's paddle at Salt Creek. There's a men's league that operates on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. There's approximately 5,000 people in it, including, I think the second biggest club probably in the whole league is Catherine Legge, KLM's team, Hinsdale Paddle Club. The play is so voluminous, there's so many players that we have trouble. There's several other places that close at 10:30, but closing before that, we're already stacked up playing multiple matches from as soon as people can get there after work till that time. So you would run the risk of not being allowed to be in the league if you couldn't have proper match times. It would be different from the other, I forget what there is, 7 or 9 clubs that are within 5 miles of here. Every other facility does that. So that's the need for the time. And part of our growth is so great, and we're spreading out Mondays, especially for women. They want to do the same thing. They have a women's league now going, and it's not exclusively, but it's catered towards working women. So it's women who start at 7 o'clock or later at night. There's usually 2 sessions. Some people can't, want to put their kids down or whatever they want to do. So they don't even start till the second session. So a typical session is at least an hour and a half. And then sometimes you get into overtime, so to speak. So that's why we need a minimum of a 10:30 time. Does anyone have questions on that?
I believe when the new courts went in at KLM, there was an agreement with Burr Ridge because the residents were concerned about the noise and the lights. And I think it was the village who put in a berm to screen the site. Do you have any kind of screening you could do?
Yeah, we have a huge screen. There's a building that is existing for the 2 new courts. The courts will be invisible from Bonnie Bray. You would not be able to see or hear or know that they're even there. And they're also a berm. Our berm is got to be 20 feet tall from the east side, so you can't see the courts from, and it's behind a building. You can't see the courts from Madison Street either.
My concern is one of the neighbors who spoke at our last meeting, they brought in photographs. And a photo to me says 1,000 words. There was so much glare, so much light coming from the lights. It looked like an airport runway. Now, will the shields help with that glare? Will that bring the lighting down?
If I may, the shields stop the light from going across. That's exactly what the shields do. That is light that they're not seeing down. That's light they're seeing across. It comes through 2 of the windows from the one building. So when you have these shrouds/shields on there, light won't be projection to the north and south. It'll be projecting straight down. And they don't exist down there now. They had tried them at one time. They're going to put them back on.
And also, the photos that he has, that's Court 1. That is south of the existing building, or the paddle building. That is not being shielded by the paddle building as the Courts 5 and 6 will be. So you can't even see 3 and 4 in that photograph. And those are the other 2 that would be next to, in line with, 5 and 6. So that's existing courts, the paddle court. You're still probably gonna see illuminated screen because the light comes down and lights up the screen. But the lights will be situated with the shields to block out the glare.
These courts are the equivalent to a block away from Bonnie Bray houses and almost that far away from Madison Street. A block away. It's.
You've seen the pictures, though.
Well, that's the one.
If you took a picture of a street light, you can get that same effect.
Well, we've had other applications in front of us, a plan commission, car dealerships, signage for businesses, and we're asking them to have their lights off by like 9 o'clock and go to security. I understand you're a different use, but then again, I think we do need to listen to the neighbors, their concerns, and I do appreciate that you've addressed the other issues.
And it's only one court as stated, and that is one of the existing courts, and that will have the shields put on. It's not the other 2. You're only seeing lights from one of the courts out of the 3 that exist. The building blocks courts 2, 3, 4, and the rest of the courts.
Is there a reason that the shields were taken off? if they were on originally.
Yes,
They
same,
weren't on originally, they tried to add them on at one point,
same reason they didn't work at KLM, they're not as good for play.
but they're gonna be put back on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank
Anna?
you for the response. I was not at the last meeting, but I read through it, and it seems like all the issues have been dealt with. Just to confirm, you're getting rid of the cranks, yes?
They're gonna actually be cranks. Right now, there's a switch, a toggle.
So
that
my
people
only
turn off.
concern there is at 10:30, somebody can crank it, and it would be on for 2
There's
more
a
hours.
main one also.
There's an automatic timer that controls all the power to those courts. That shuts down,
Okay.
and that'll shut down at 10:30. The reasoning for the switch to be removed and the crank one to be installed is that thing will keep on working until, say, until for 2 hours, and then
Yeah.
it'll shut off.
Right.
So in the morning, when the concern was that when the power comes back on in the morning, these will be off.
I see.
The bigger problem was, because they play in the winter, and they'd go on at possibly 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock when the power back.
And that's
Go
where that
back on.
picture came from.
Correct.
Yeah, because when there was a power outage.
It wasn't the end of the day, it was more the power outage.
Yeah.
They come on in the morning, when it's
Great.
dark out.
No further questions.
Thanks, Anna.
Any
Scott?
constraints on the time that the power will come back on in the morning?
Sorry.
Because you remember how it was.
We had it about 5:45 because there was a group that played before work. I want to say that guy is no longer a member, so we can push the power to 6:30 when
Yeah,
the sun rises. Is that, I mean,
I think sunrise would be great.
we'll
You know,
follow,
something
I
like
mean, we'll
that.
follow
I'm not trying to be onerous on you guys, but that's when I think the neighbors were most irritated was the morning,
was the
the
five-
photographs were
It was
taken in
the
the
morning.
morning.
I don't think there was a photo taken between like 11 PM and 5 AM, right? There wasn't like 2 AM
Well, it
photos.
sounds to me like you
It's
guys
the-
had that part of it
Yeah.
addressed. I'm just asking to make sure that we talk about the front end
We could
in
do
the
6,
morning,
we could
and
do
let's make sure
6:30.
that that's addressed too, and then I think people will be a little more comfortable.
In the packet, the
I
proposal
thought it
was
was
7 a.m.
7 a.m.
Correct.
lights
It does
come
say
back on.
7.
Like, I could make 7?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer 7.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So
7?
7 to 10:30 is what we're agreeing to.
Correct.
Shrouds on all of the courts,
All
not
courts.
just court 1, but all of them.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the timers on each court.
And the timers
Yeah.
on each, the hand timers, and then the master override, that's the 7 to 10:30.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you coming back and considering to put the shields on all of them. I think that will really, will help the neighbors. It's definitely a step in the right direction. I appreciate the restriction on the hours, the individual timers, and, being sensitive to the concern of the neighbors with those large events, which are not paddle events, but swim meets or tennis. So I appreciate the efforts made to be a better neighbor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just let us
Is
know.
there anyone here from the neighborhood that would like to speak? Yes, sir. Please come up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vince Tessitore, and my clients are Cal and Maria Shakir, who appeared before you last time. They reside at 543 Bonnie Brae Road in Hinsdale. They couldn't be here tonight. I recently sent a letter. It sounds like you guys did get that in your
Yes,
packet,
we did.
which I'm glad to hear. I want to start out actually by thanking Bethany and Rob. A few days after my letter, they called me. They wanted to give me some background and some context into the matter and sort of the history of the property. They did explain that the use is a legal non-conforming use. That's something that I wouldn't be able to see from not having the history of the zoning in front of me. So my kudos to the village for hiring good people. In my experience in going to different municipalities throughout the area, that kind of diligence is relatively rare. So I appreciated that. They also wanted to inform me primarily that there was a new packet out for your consideration, that it did include the concessions that were just discussed by the applicant. And I did take a look at those concessions, and although I appreciate the applicant is making concessions and is taking some measures to address the lighting issue, there really isn't anything being done to address the noise. But I want to address the lighting a little bit first, because the hours of operation that was represented in terms of your public parks being open, to me, is inconsistent with an ordinance from the village website, and if that ordinance has been repealed or changed and the website is wrong, then certainly your council can let me know. But that's section 7-3-1. I do have a copy of it. I've made 10 copies for your consideration if you would like me to hand that up. But that ordinance requires all public parks, with one exception, in the village of Hinsdale, to be closed at 10 p.m. The one exception is KLM, and that exception is for 6 months out of the year from October through the end of April. But other than that, all public parks are required to be closed at 10. In reality, they're open till 10:30, at least according to this section, which was taken from the code on your website. That would be a violation if it's past 10 o'clock. So we're, you know, we did request that the hours of operation be limited to 9 p.m. I think that's reasonable. You know, I'm sure we can all appreciate, at least I can. I have teenage children, you know, and it wasn't, they, you know, are in bed by about 10 p.m. as am I on most nights, but it wasn't but a few years ago that they were in bed by 9 p.m., so I think 9 p.m. is reasonable. However, if we're looking for consistency within the village in terms of the hours of operation, seems to me that based on this code provision section, 10 o'clock would be consistent with all public parks in the village. So, you know, the request here would be that it at least be reduced to 10 o'clock. Although, you know, obviously my letter request of 9 p.m. is still what my client is asking for. With respect to the noise, I think my clients testified last time that, and if they didn't, they've certainly expressed to me that quite often, when they try to sleep past 6 a.m. in the morning, they're woken up by the alarm, so to speak, of paddleball sound. And I think you've addressed that with the 7 a.m. start time, and we appreciate that. You know, it's just, so I think that that's, you know, my compliments in terms of making that stride and the applicant agreeing to that. We just still do not have a sound buffer between the hours of operation, you know, whether that be 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. or whatever it is. There, you know, and this is a problem that you've probably heard about in the press, is becoming more common these days with the popularity in pickleball growing. I just heard a news report recently on WBBM by Bernie Tafoya about the problems in Libertyville they're having with a similar club, where in the report residents were testifying that they could hear the sound from blocks away, and that is happening. It's certainly a problem for our clients, and I think, you know, your ability to place conditions upon this approval should include some sort of sound barrier, because that issue simply isn't being addressed. So with that, if you guys do want a copy of the ordinance, I have it. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be certainly happy to answer them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, Bethany, or Rob, can you comment on 7-3-1 and this issue with KLM having an exception beyond 10?
So they are correct that at least what I was able to get from our Parks and Rec supervisor ahead of time prior to this meeting, all of the ball court lights, so like the Pierce Park lights, the VEC lights, the larger lights, they do turn off at 10 in our parks. And then in terms of KLM, we have a separate agreement that was approved after that code with HPTA to allow for them to use the lights until 10:30 all year. So it was a separate agreement that was done on the side of that. I was not able to confirm the lighting for Burns Field ahead of this meeting for the two courts that are there. So that's the only one I still don't have confirmation on yet of when those lights go out.
Based on
Just
the
for the
code, it
paddle
would be
tennis.
10 o'clock would be what would be required
It
for
sounds
Burns?
like per the code, it should be 10 o'clock, unless there's another separate agreement
And is
that I'm
that
not aware
public
of.
parks?
Public parks.
Yeah.
And was KLM for 6 months, or was it for a year?
The current agreement that I'm aware of with, between the village and Hinsdale Paddle Tennis through separate agreements approved by the village board in the past is all year round.
Okay, thank you.
till 10:30. And then their clubhouse, they're required to be completely closed by 11:30, but the lights have to go out at 10:30.
Right. And to the extent that the code doesn't currently reflect those agreements or exceptions, we can make those amendments. It may not have just been brought up to date.
Okay. Other comments? You have more questions, sir?
No,
Okay. Peter?
I think,
You need to come up to the mic so people on TV can hear
sure.
you.
I don't know about now, but back in the day before KLM was built, the league played at Burns Field. And from when that started in the late 80s till KLM was built 20 some years ago, they played till 10:30 there because it was in the league and that was what was required. Just a clarification. I don't know what the rules were or not. I just know that's what was set up.
I'll just answer one last question about noise. These two courts are further from their house than anything that exists there now. We're just trying to get approval for two courts that are a football field and a half away from their house. And it's not pickleball that's being played on those courts. It's paddle. If anyone plays paddle, it's a dead ball. It's not loud. The only noise you would hear is people yelling at each other if you heard noise. So to go next to a Salt Creek Club that has been there way before anyone lived on that block on Bonnie Bray that's there now, and try to say that we have to build new screening because we have all of a sudden have noise there. There's noise at a pool, there's noise at a tennis court, there's noise when you have open, games being played. We're not asking to increase any of that. We're further away from the houses than anything else that's there, and it's solely for paddle that we're here tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Chairman, questions, comments? Yes, Michael?
I just wanted to mention, I mean, to the sounds like the club has been responsive to some of these concerns and made concessions for things outside of what they're asking for. But what's really before you is just these two new paddle courts. So,
If it was always so simple, though.
So to the extent that operationally, shutting down the club at a certain time, isn't before you. It's really the use of these clubs and how they are going to affect the neighbor. These courts and how they're going to affect the neighbors.
True. It could be something that we could ask the board to consider. It's the fact that right now we have inconsistency across public parks.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Right. No. I understand that. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because if they're playing at 10:30 at Burns, that's not in the code.
Right.
And
right. And I agree that needs to be updated.
Addressed and then
to the extent that the parks are being operated inconsistent with the ordinance, we need to correct that. So.
And I would definitely, I used to live over by Pierce Park, and aluminum bats, that was a sound that permeates pretty well across the neighborhood, so.
That provision looks like it's back in 2008, so it's quite possible it just got overlooked. It's in the public ways section of the code. It's a long time ago. The agreements were papered well after that. Certainly, we can make sure there's consistency with respect to that code.
That wouldn't apply here, right?
Pardon me?
But that wouldn't
Doesn't
apply
apply here.
to
No,
Salt
no, that would just be something, we're a recommending board, so something that
Put it on the list for cleanup.
For the board. On aisle
the
three.
highly paid professionals can address. Other thoughts, questions, comments? If none, yes, Julie?
I do not like how the code is not consistent. It's really bothering me. Just so you know.
Well, that's why I asked, that could be a recommendation for the board to consider this, because, they send projects to us, and we can send it back and say, this is something they should investigate.
Right. You could certainly direct that be part of the findings.
Yeah. I mean, the board could decide that they want to make it 10 o'clock.
I think this is something we need to address too when we redo the lighting code.
I feel like signs go off at 10.
Right. I think what really bothers me with the application, along with it not being consistent, is that we have two neighbor concerns. Most of their concerns have been addressed. But you're being good neighbors. You've addressed most of the issues. I know you've agreed to turn off the lights at 10:30. I wish it could be 10 o'clock, but I understand league play is what the issue is here. if the neighbors do have any problems, who can they reach out to?
General manager.
Okay, I see you keep making faces on the things that are being said that you don't like, and just so you know, I don't appreciate that, and I don't know if you're the right person to meet with the neighbors.
I'm not the general manager. He's not here. I'm one of the
Okay.
managers. We've asked to meet with the neighbors numerous times. They refuse to meet with us before
Yes,
the projects.
but that was back in 2022, correct?
A few times. We're always open.
Please, they can't hear you unless you come to the mic.
Myself, I'm the president, I was the vice president at the time, Al, as well as Steve Wolsfeld, the general manager, tried to meet with the neighbors 3 times. One morning, we were confirmed for a Sunday morning. The neighbors never showed up. We wanted to walk through the plan with them, have them, be good neighbors, show the plan to them, the patio, the new courts, where the proximity is to, and hear what their concerns are. But they didn't come, so.
I appreciate
here,
that, and I'm
yeah.
glad that you reached out to the neighbors. Like I said, I'm just having problems with the whole lighting issue not being consistent, and with parks, even though you're a private club, closing at 10. That's all.
Okay, so, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve, I can't find the number, case 07, 2023, 830 North Madison, Salt Creek Club. Request for 2 new paddle courts.
And with the conditions of the shields on existing,
And the mechanical
timers, and the hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m.
10:30, yes.
And is there one more thing? I think that was it. Yes.
Lawn maintenance, you got that?
Well, that's not really us.
Okay,
That's-
okay.
That's someone else in the village. Okay, do I hear a second?
Seconded, more.
And the motion includes a fire pit as well, right?
Yes.
Patio fire
Yeah,
pit, yes,
the
yes.
application
Yeah.
with those recommendations. And the recommendation for the board to, investigate this issue of hours across our public parks. Bethany, you can
Which is
phrase
not
it.
part of their, which isn't part of their
Yeah.
application.
You can throw them some work. Could we have a roll call vote, please, Beth?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did, more.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Commissioner Harlow?
Aye.
Commissioner Jablonski?
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich?
Abstain.
Commissioner Fiasconi?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Chairman Cashman?
Aye. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
So her vote's actually.
Okay. Our next order of business is a sign permit review, case A-25, 2023, for 14 Grant Square, Suite B, Jocelyn D. Jewelry, installation of one wall sign. Hi there. What's your name, sir?
Rafael Murillo from Jocelyn D. Jewelry.
Okay.
And I'd like to get permission to install my sign.
Okay.
My sign is going to be installed in a box with channel lettering. My box is 96 inches by 15 inches. My text is 12 inches by 94.63 inches. It is 10 square feet. It meets the height width with the 5% variance that was required. It is illuminated, halo lit. The colors are matte charcoal, which is matching the surrounding businesses beside my left and my right.
Yeah.
It is UL certified, and Hinsdale Management, my landlord, has approved it. So now I need your blessing.
Awesome. Thank you. Scott, questions, comments?
It looks very much like the sign that exists now with a change.
That's
right?
correct.
Is that correct?
That's
And it's
correct.
the same format, it's the same structure. The letters look to be about the same size.
That's correct.
It meets the village code, so I have no further questions.
Thanks, Scott. Anna? Julie?
No questions, I'm fine with the sign.
Thank you.
I think it looks great.
Thank you.
Jerry?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Laura?
No questions.
Thank you.
Looks very nice.
No, it's very tasteful, and I do think it fits in well with the Grand Square, and well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to approve case A-25, 2023, sign permit review for 14 Grand Square, Suite B, as submitted?
So moved, Fiasconi.
Second, Cernovich?
Roll call vote, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Harlow,
Aye.
Commissioner Jablonski,
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiascone,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
So moved.
Or some-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any way, like, signed permit reviews could be at the top of our agendas?
Yes, so they don't have to, the poor guy waited for so long.
Well, but, I mean, there's been cases where we've
Oh, yeah.
had, you know,
Yes.
applicants wait well over an
After
hour.
the Eden.
Yes, unless we know it's gonna be a contentious, you know, or long signed permit case, we'll put them at the top now.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Easy
you. I
to
just
do.
think they would appreciate that.
Yes.
And the chair has the right to take things out of order,
Oh,
Okay.
as he
Oh.
sees or she sees.
all right. Yeah. I mean,
Be careful, he's gonna ask for adjournment first.
Yeah, I'd like to roll call, then adjourn, please.
Well, if they watch us rough people up, it makes appreciate the good work they do.
Yeah, shake things up.
They're not easy A's. We don't give out easy A's here.